I asked Professor Oki to tell us why he thinks that listening is so important for English learners. He said that it's obvious. There's so much to listen to on the internet today. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Why do you think it's important to teach listening to students?
Well, I think this is rather obvious in the world that we live in now. Listening has become very important with the internet. A lot more information is now presented through the listening channel. It used to be that we read books, we read the newspaper. Now we listen to a lot of this information online. So listening has become very important, especially in the last 10 to 20 years as the internet has become more and more common. The world's plugged in now. You watch people walk by and they're plugged in, they're listening on their headphones. It's all listening now. So much of the information is only available in English, and it's really important that we're able to listen and comprehend English. The other reason I think it's important that students learn about listening is because listening is a big part of speaking. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're taking a test, a speaking test, and you can't understand the questions, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to get a very good speaking score. And if you're unable to comprehend the views of others, it's pretty hard for you to contribute to some kind of discussion. So listening is really important if you want to be a person that is involved and interact with others.
Professor Oki pointed out that listening is an important way of gaining access to information in the world today. The internet brings news, information, and entertainment to the world using oral language. Many people are plugged in, as he put it, to their devices. They're listening to someone and something on their headphones almost all the time. And there's just a lot to listen to in English. A lot of the news comes in English, a lot of what's going on, a lot of the communication between people in different countries happens in English. So anyone who wants to participate is wise to learn to listen in English. He also pointed out that listening is essential for speaking. When someone says they speak a language, they really mean that they both speak and listen to the language. To engage in any conversation, a speaker has to be able to understand what the other person is saying. And to have good conversations, a person has to really understand very well what the person is saying so that they can make appropriate contributions to the conversation. So in an important sense, listening is part of speaking. I asked Professor Oki what teachers need to know about listening. He pointed out that listening requires multiple different processes and that understanding these is important for teaching. Let's listen.
What's the most important thing for teachers to understand about listening?
I could talk about a whole lot of these. I've just chosen a few, but again, there are many others that I'm not going to be able to have time to talk about. First off, I think it's important that teachers need to know the importance of both top-down and bottom-up listening skills. Top-down, these are things that get students to try to understand the main idea by predicting, discovering based on what they've understood from the discourse, as well as other cues in the environment, such as visual cues. So it's very important that students learn top-down listening picture based on predicting. It's also important that they learn bottom-up listening skills, and these things include being able to decode information based on the sentence-level vocabulary and grammar. Students need to be able to decode streams of speech into words and sentences. It's also important for teachers to understand that supersegmentals, such as intonation, are crucial for helping students decode information. For example, these words, "I really like you," can mean anything from "I really like you" to "I hate you." So for example, I could say, "I really like you," which means I really do like you. I could say, "I really like you," which is sort of a question. Well, I don't know if I do or I don't. Or I could say, "I really like you," which is sort of a sarcastic way of saying, "I don't like you." So it's important that students understand intonation and listening. Teachers also need to know that spoken language differs depending on the register. Academic language is quite different than teenager talk, for example. Teachers need to know the importance of pointing out such differences to students. For example, it may not be surprising to hear, "Sorry, my bad," in a soccer game. But we would not expect at all to hear this in an academic lecture from a teacher. We would expect them to say, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." So we would see quite different uses of the language, and it's important that students listen and recognize that different social contexts are going to bring about different listening pieces. Again, there are many other things that I could say teachers need to know about listening, but those are some of the things that come to my mind at this time.